The West Virginia State Police and the West Virginia CID, Criminal Investigation Division, are at the 49-acre property right now, searching them officially with search warrants, and I'm going insane. Why am I not on the property? Why didn't they tell me about this? Why is this a big secret? Why are they not searching every inch of the properties? And why are they not searching the other 7 properties identified by me? For real, dude, if they don't find bodies, there are hundreds of bodies buried there. If they don't find bodies on the property, this is a fake search. And the purpose of this search is to document falsely that nothing was found and no further search needs to be done. Let me read you some emails that I sent to to the FBI agents and my state senator constituent services representative. It's come to my attention that a very selective search of the 49-acre property was performed. 1, in complete secrecy, 2, by West Virginia CID agents. Apparently, these West Virginia CID agents employed, quote, a ground penetration device was used on the Berkeley Springs property with no significant hits or anomalies. They went from around the farmhouse to 500 yards up and down the access road. A, first, the area searched represents approximately 1/16 of an acre out of 49 acres of land. If someone were to walk the boundaries of the 49 acres, they would probably walk 3 miles or more. So literally, these dudes are doing an incredibly selective search. They're only searching the property immediately abutting the farmhouse and the access road. Okay, item B. I would note that there are bodies buried all over the 49-acre farm property, and it's difficult to walk on that property without literally tripping over dead, buried bodies. I'm an eyewitness to many crimes committed on the property. I'm an eyewitness to the live burial of a NIST engineer. He's buried in the barn, right in the center of the barn. The kidnap and subsequent murder of a cyclist who was studying to become a doctor. I did not witness the moment of this man's death, but I witnessed 3 days of torture, shooting, stabbing, breaking all his bones, starved for 3 days, multiple rapes at my Gaithersburg, Maryland home. He was there for 3 days. I saw him, all of this. He was snatched at the Montgomery County Fair. He was run off the road by my father in his car. He was bludgeoned with a tire iron and shot multiple times at the scene. I give the responding officer's name, the Montgomery County Police responding officer. I know who this guy is. I call him Babyface Cop in the book. This cyclist, I was taken to the farm property on that day by my aunt. She led me to the upstairs room where he was tied to a chair. He was awaiting additional torture and live burial. So they kept this guy alive. This is like the 5th day, and they were going to kill me that day. That's why they were showing me. Okay, so I demanded that my aunt cut him loose, and she, very passive aggressively, she smiled and pushed me away, and I physically grabbed her. I was a small boy. I was 75 pounds. I physically grabbed her in a bear hug, and I dragged her back to the chair, and I said, untie him. We're going to save this guy. And she's like, you can't touch me. What are you doing? And I wouldn't let her out of the room. And I kept saying, untie him. We're getting out of here and call the police. She wouldn't do it. Okay, so I cut the guy loose, and all his legs were broken beneath the knees, just shattered, just like Legos. And his hands were broken. I cut him loose with a knife. And then we went across the creek to escape. And of course, they caught us, because the whole reason I was there that day was to be murdered and buried in the hole with that man. But first, they were going to rape me and torture me. This is my father. My father was going to do this to me, his own son. Whenever anybody would say, you could do that to your own son, he would say, that's not my son. Okay, that's how my father would act. Okay, some other people who are buried on that land that I saw. There's also, so the NIST engineer, the cyclist, he's in the upper field. The NIST engineer is in the barn. The family right abutting at the top of the 49-acre property, there was a house with a family, a hippie family. He killed the whole family. They're buried there. I saw that man. I was with my friend Danny, and I was with my sister and her friend, and he came running out of the woods completely naked, screaming for help. And my father and the West Virginia, they're West Virginia cops in uniform, okay? And Gigi Treson, the woman I call Gigi Treson, and I've identified this woman that I call Gigi Treson in my book by full name, social security number, birth date, and she's assaulted me in all 50 states at this point, and she's followed me overseas on to like 40 countries, every plane flight I've ever been on, and no one's done anything. No one will arrest this monster. And she's the most prolific serial murderer, female serial murderer, kidnapper, child molester in human history. And yes, I know about Elizabeth Bathory. She's a punk compared to Gigi Treson. How come no one would arrest Gigi Treson even though she's attacked me in all 50 states with a handgun? Well, I'll tell you why. Because she was an active duty DEA agent while she was committing all these crimes against me. And every single time she flew in to kill me, she would call herself in to the police as a police officer responding to a crime. And every time she's tried to kill me, there's a uniformed local police officer covering her back, making sure that nothing happens to her and that I get killed. Okay? And every murder that I witnessed in West Virginia, there was one West Virginia State police officer present and one Berkeley Springs police officer present. So why would it bother me that the West Virginia State Police are performing this search? Because do you really believe there's no cross-contamination? Every single live burial and murder that I witnessed in West Virginia, there was a West Virginia State Police officer there. Do you really think that the West Virginia State Police don't know about these bodies? They don't know where these bodies are buried. They know, trust me. 30 years I've been calling Gigi Treson in at every time she tries to kill me by full name, social security number, and birth date, and reporting her to the police officer right there. Okay, I'm never allowed to file a report. She simply says she doesn't know me, and I'm identifying her by her social security number, and then she says, oh, he's stealing my identity. Okay, what did the police do about this? They swore to me, for 30 years I've been calling this monster in. They swear to me nationwide, they swear she has no association with law enforcement. Okay, I've been reporting her to the governors, to 10 different governors in 10 different states. I report her by full name and social security number, and no one would tell me they would all tell me she has no association with law enforcement. And so she was doing this as a law enforcement officer. The government was paying for her travel, her plane flights, her per diem, her hotel room, her car, her gas, so she could follow me around and commit felonies against me. That's what your government does with your money. You should be very upset. So that family and the deer hunting, there was a deer hunting young man. My father they used to drive the deer for hunting. And so my father brought me there for deer hunting. He starved me for 3 days, and he was in front of all the people. There were 20 guys there, and 10 of us would drive the deer through the field, and then there was a group standing static waiting, and it's like an L. Okay, it's shaped like an L, like a graph. And as the deer run past, the men staggered throughout the field on the edge, they would shoot the deer. Okay, that's illegal now in West Virginia, but that's how it used to be done. And so my father kept trying to shoot me in front of everybody, and he made no secret of it. And so this young man objected, so he killed that young man. They tied him to a tree. First they shot him, they put him in the trunk, and then my father was busy, so he had to run home back to Gaithersburg from Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. So his cop, my father's Berkeley Springs cop, the guy I call, he's like Boss Hogg, really fat. They chained him to a tree, and the cop sat there all night while this guy was naked, chained to a tree, and he froze to death. And they just kept laughing about that and laughing and laughing. Okay, so in this letter that I wrote to them and I sent to my senator, item C, the only locations where bodies are not buried on the farm property would read, quote, from around the farmhouse to 500 yards up and down the access road. Okay, that's where they searched. They searched around the farmhouse and up and down the access road. No bodies are buried on or along the access road. One side is a creek, the other side is the church property, and that land is high and visible from all directions. There are no bodies buried immediately abutting the farmhouse structure. This indicates that these agents seem to know exactly where the bodies are buried and were careful to conduct their search only in the small sliver of land where bodies are not buried. Also, I would note that one side of the access road is a cemetery attached to the small church. Am I to understand that your excellently trained CID agents found no bodies in a church cemetery? So they said that they searched the access road. This is an access road. This is not property belonging to my grandfather. It's an access road. They were granted access onto the farm property. Okay, that's not the farm property, that's an access road. Okay, and on one side of that is a church cemetery. Now they did bury at least one body up in that church cemetery. I think it was the cyclist, and that was in the 70s. Okay? And they've said they found no bodies in a church cemetery. I'm sorry, what is your search method again? Intentionally covering up RICO crimes, Racketeering Influence Corrupt Practices Act, creating a false evidence trail to obscure previous or continuing criminal acts. These acts represent additional RICO predicated acts and must be included in the RICO evidence currently being compiled in the work papers. This is the email that I sent to the agents and to my senator. This is the second time the West Virginia State Police have conducted an invalid search. The first time, I had an international media contact with over 25 years of experience who called every police official and prosecutor in West Virginia. No one would call him back to discuss his request to walk the properties. He simply asked to walk the properties. He didn't demand search warrants. This is an international media guy from the Associated Press. After a month or more of stonewalling this media contact, suddenly I was informed that 2 West Virginia State Police officers had, quote, walked the property and, of course, found nothing. Of course, there were no witnesses. There's no evidence trail available for review, but there are abundant excuses and threats freely available. What happened there? They refused to walk the property with a witness, with an international media contact, and as soon as they got rid of that guy, they created a false evidence trail by walking the property themselves. I continue in my email. These poorly executed searches appear to be intentional attempts to create a false evidence trail. I wouldn't want these agencies and officers to be embarrassed when a proper search is conducted and bodies are found all over these properties. Please order the West Virginia State Police and the West Virginia CID to stand down immediately. Nothing less than a full and comprehensive search of all 8 properties identified by myself would constitute a valid search. Every inch of these properties must be properly and legally searched, employing all available methods and coordinating with all interested parties. How do we know that West Virginia police are not destroying evidence and digging up bodies? Who is supervising them? Whose horrible idea is it to run off half-cocked and perform the most half-assed, half-witted fake search imaginable? The whole thing stinks. Obviously, the search of these properties needs to be done, 1, with search warrants, 2, with all interested parties on site, 3, very carefully. This fake search was executed in secret. No one except the most suspicious characters were present for the search. They used suspect methods. Oh, a ground radar machine, you say. Never heard of that. You neither? Oh, it's accurate less than 1% of the time? Excellent. Oh, no one knows how to use it? What's that? Gigi Treson, the greatest living child molester, kidnapper, murderer, and international criminal, knows how to operate it? Perfect. Stop this madness immediately. Send someone you trust from the FBI, not anyone from the West Virginia law enforcement community. I tell you what, homies, they better find bodies on this property, because if they don't, this is the documentation of fake evidence, and those are RICO-predicated crimes.